AskReddit.
Warning: viewers' discretion advised. Please subscribe to our channel, and we have 20 more videos on our channel to entertain you. You can recommend to us what videos you want us to make. Dark Reddit family can work it out for you. Also click the notification bell. Psychologists, what's the creepiest mental illness? Serious. There's this condition called prosopagnosia or face blindness. It's where you can't recognize people's faces. It's caused by part of the brain being damaged or underdeveloped. It's kind of interesting as many sufferers can see people fine, but only recognize them by things such as the way they walk. Sometimes it can be easier to recognize someone they know from behind than seeing their face. This is actually much more common than people think, but usually in very mild forms. My dad has this, and I believe I also do, undiagnosed, as it is hereditary. I get mixed up with various individuals quite often, calling them the wrong name, etc. Never had this problem with my family, but with celebrities and some acquaintances, yeah, I can't tell the difference sometimes. From a neuropsychological viewpoint, for me the scariest mental illness is that any part in your brain can exclusively be turned off. From as specific to not being able to perceive more than one object consciously, to repeating a single sound while speaking but still creating cohesive sentences in your mind, to not being able to see faces correctly, but more as a Picasso painting. To me the creepiest part is that the brain often continues with working, but without the part, which can be as light as being bad at math, to not being able to grasp the concept of quantities. Can you tell me what the name is of the first thing you described? I'm insanely interested in learning more about that. Simultanagnosia. If you see the lecture videos about it, you will be amazed at how specific disorders can be. Alzheimer's is pretty freaky to me. Just erasing memories. Not being able to recognize a child you've raised since he was born, and he's just a completely stranger to you one day, and the next you might remember him. What's scary is that could be your mother or father that you love dearly, and you're nobody to them. Personally, I think the paranoia and aggression that come with it are far more creepy. With that said, losing the memories and recognition is extremely sad. I've heard of two interesting ones. The first is that you don't recognize your own reflection, so whenever you do see your reflection you look as if you're dead. The second is the inability to look in a certain direction, such as left. Your brain will basically refuse to look left, much like how you're not able to eat yourself. Your brain just won't let you. The inability to look in a certain direction, such as left. It's not even that your brain refuses to look left. You lose the entire concept of left, what left even means. Someone asking you what's on your left is like asking a blind person what they see. Except that your intelligence is intact, and you know you should be able to understand what's on your left, so the mere question incites panic. There's a book called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat that I would recommend to anyone who finds the stuff in this thread fascinating. The above is one of the cases in it. I saw some sort of doc about mental issues and cases. A woman woke up one day and life was 100% erased from her brain. Words, memories, and even basic understanding a child would have. I think after a month of electrotherapy, she all of a sudden one day had it all back and shortly went back to life at home. The fear in her eyes when she first came in was like nothing I've seen. Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Alice in Wonderland syndrome, AWS, is a neurologic condition in which a patient's sense of body image, space, and/or time is distorted. Those experiencing AWS may have hallucinations, sensory distortion, and an altered sense of velocity. AWS results from change in perception. Though there are many symptoms, the most prevalent one is altered body image. Patients are confused about the size and shape of parts of their bodies. I used to get this bad when I was a kid. It was like this feverish episode where everything around me looked completely tiny and far away, and my own hands were too far away to see. I'd look at them and squint my eyes, but they seemed to be miles away. I've had it more recently, where my hands seemed to swell up in size and didn't feel like mine anymore. They were just these huge swollen monstrosities that were attached to the ends of my hands. I wasn't even looking at them, but I could feel them at my sides like huge swollen gloves. It's usually not very extreme anymore, but it's really scared me as a kid. I'd have to go through to my parents and I'd cry about needing a measuring stick or something because everything around me was completely off in size and I couldn't make sense of it. If you get a bad episode of it, which doesn't really happen to me anymore, it's very common as something you grow out of. Then your whole sense of body and self gets skewed, and your limbs don't feel like your own, and everything around you changes quite disturbingly. Very interesting though. There's two I've heard of that creep me out. Cotard delusion, which is believing you are a ghost, and you just shut off from your friends and family and stop eating, and eventually you just neglect yourself to death. Capgras delusion, where you believe that someone or multiple people close to you have been replaced by an imposter. Real creepy stuff. Don't both of these fall under schizophrenia? Lifted straight from Wikipedia, so proceed with caution. The delusion most commonly occurs in individuals diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, but has also been seen in brain injury, dementia with Lewy bodies, and other dementia. It presents often in individuals with a neurodegenerative disease, particularly at an older age. It has also been reported as occurring in association with diabetes, hypothyroidism, and migraine attacks. In one isolated case, the Capgras delusion was temporarily induced in a healthy subject by the drug ketamine. It occurs more frequently in females, with a female-to-male ratio of approximately 3:2. Acute borderline personality disorder. Obligatory, not a psychologist. But I've worked in the mental health field for over a decade. Acute borderline is by far one of the most frightening. When people think psych ward, they picture ranting, headbanging, a touch of violence, etc., and rightfully so. But the conditions associated with that dreadful spooky mental health image are actually just annoying bizarre. A schizophrenic may walk up to you and say the frogs are Jesus, tell you they think the FBI is after them, or just be catatonic and rarely speak or move. Borderlines, though, in the anxiety and depression unit, will slice themselves to pieces to get the attention of someone they like and switch from inconsolable crying to rage at the drop of a hat. Anyway, AMA. I've done emergency psychiatric intervention as an EMT, worked in several inpatient mental hospitals, and spent 8 years in the Army as a mental health specialist. I've got stories aplenty. For the sufferer? Schizophrenia, hands down. The delusions, the hallucinations. I remember a case in undergrad we were given where a man suffering from schizophrenia was hearing voices that had convinced him there were people waiting outside his house with the intent to kill him, and as a result he was effectively a shut-in who lived his life in constant abject terror. Antipsychotic medications are a wonderful invention because I truly feel empathize with anyone suffering from schizophrenia.
Like, comment and subscribe, and also press the bell notification. We are coming up with best stories for you. Stay tuned.